Hey guys, and welcome back to the Wedding Buzz. Today we have an excellent guest, William Cahlstadt. He is the branch manager for the South Florida market with PRP Wine International. He is a level 1 sommelier. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Sommelier
By the Court of Master Sommeliers, Americas, with about 20 years of experience in the wine and spirits service and distribution. He represents PRP Wines, which offers a unique niche product line and service. PRP Wine International is a wine company with over 50 years of experience in the United States, specializing in-home wine samplings. Their all-natural wines are sourced from boutique wineries worldwide, including their family-owned wineries in Germany, France, Italy, Austria, and Hungary. These wines are not commercially available in the U.S., so they cannot be found in any retail store, restaurant, or wine bars. Additionally, they offer a unique gift service line where they offer their clients the opportunity to design their own labels for bottles of wine that they will deliver directly to their doorstep. They also offer laser etching on wine glasses, sommelier kits, that's a hard word for me, wine boxes, and much more. Whether you're looking for advice on what wines you should be serving for your event, looking for unique or rare wines to offer at your event, or gifts for your friends, family, and attendees, Will can guide you in the right direction for your big day. So, Will, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit more about your background, how you ended up at PRP and now as the branch manager for South Florida. How did you gain your knowledge in this industry?
My knowledge started in restaurants. I've been working in restaurants pretty much my entire life, both as a teenager and as an adult. But where it really came about was as a bartender. I specialized in craft cocktails and spirits and a little bit of the private distribution as well. When I started managing restaurants, I started getting into Mediterranean wine bars, working with different vendors, different people in the business. And from there, I started getting a pretty good working knowledge of wine, as well as the inner workings and the science behind wine and what it takes to really create a good style of wine. The more I studied, the more I loved it, the more I got into it. And eventually I got hooked up with PRP Wine and started as a wine consultant and then entered their management program. So after about 20 years in restaurants, I decided to get out. It was a good time to leave hospitality industry.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to know some people with PRP, and there we go. Now we're off and running. I took over the South Florida market right around the middle of February.
That's awesome. I worked in a restaurant for a short period of time, and I feel like everybody should work in a restaurant. Like, you learn so much, especially if you're bartending and whatnot, then you gain so much knowledge.
It's a crash course in the human condition, I will say that.
So most of our listeners are either brides or grooms to be. With planning a wedding, there are so many occasions that wine will most likely be served, such as an engagement party, a bridal shower, a bachelorette weekend, the rehearsal dinner, and then obviously the wedding day. Some venues may or may not include food or wine, but either way, I'm pretty sure that our brides and grooms will have options here. So what advice or lesson can you give our listeners when it comes to pairing food with wine to be served at their special events leading up to their wedding?
There is a lot that goes into food and wine pairing, and to give people little tidbits here and there is a little bit difficult, but there are certain things that I can absolutely recommend. Working with a wine consultant will be able to give you a much better idea as to what is pairing with what, both on the palate and the aromas. Food makes wine better. Wine makes food better. This is just things that work in concert with each other, and how we always look to promote different wines and different styles of wines. Some of the other things to consider really is also cost. Some folks are not as concerned about what they're serving, and they'll throw out whatever bottles they have. But if you're looking to make it really truly special, putting a little bit extra into that and working with that food and wine pairing, whether it be in the reception or anytime you have your bridesmaids getting together, your groomsmaids getting together, even during the wedding itself, how are you pairing that food and wine? And that's something important to consider. It's not just a matter of, let me put a red out there and let me put a white out there. It doesn't really work that way. If you have spicy foods, you want sweeter wines. Those just work in concert with each other. If you have, fatty styles of foods, you want dry tannic red wines. I mean, that's just how that works. And, there's a reason why we do all of that. And a lot of that really is based on the science of the palate and how these things work in concert with each other. So to be certain, if you're pairing food and wine and you want to make it a truly exceptional experience, when you're trying the food, try it with the wine. Find that style that you enjoy. Have some variety in there as well. It's not just about dry reds and sweet whites. There's demi-sec reds, demi-sec whites, sweet reds, dry whites, sparkling, same way. There's dry to sweet and everything in between. So many factors go into how you're pairing those styles together, and it's important to experiment with it and try it. And then working with a wine consultant as well will absolutely help guide that endeavor to something that's a little bit more special.
Yeah.
Something that's exceptional for your guests.
Yeah. And I feel like working with a wine specialist could be so helpful because for me personally, I don't know anything about wine, and I am not super picky when it comes to wine, but I know that a lot of, even the guests that were at my wedding, I know a lot of them love wine and they know what food goes with what wine and whatnot. So even though it's not my thing necessarily, while hosting an event, you want to cater to your guests.
Sure. And
so working with a specialist like yourself, would be hindsight's 2020. I wish that I did that because I can't even tell you what wine I served at my wedding. But I did have a choice. I think I had my mom pick because I was I don't know. But thinking back, it would have been cool to actually have make a knowledgeable decision, depending on the food that I was serving as well. So something that you and I had spoken previously about is that you might not actually need champagne for your champagne toast, which I found this interesting and something to think about. I know everyone's oh, champagne toast, but it's a common misconception. So do tell me more. What should brides and grooms know about serving champagne for champagne toasts?
First, the one thing that I always like to get across is when we talk about champagne, when you say champagne, you're specifically talking about one style of wine from one very specific region of the world. Champagne is only sparkling wine that comes from Champagne, France. And a lot of folks really tend to use that as this, ubiquitous style word for all things sparkling. And it kind of does a disservice to champagne, but it also doesn't accentuate the variety that's out there. Proseccos from Italy, cavas from the Catalonia region of Spain, things like that. They all have their own indicative styles. So when I say, oh, we're going to have champagne, are you having a true champagne? Are you having something that's extremely dry? Are you having something that's a brut nature that's done in the méthode champenois? That's what champagne is to wine enthusiasts.
So is champagne typically dry? True champagne is very dry?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Brut to brut nature. That's where you have the least amount of residual sugars within a bottle to create something that's exceptionally dry. And
Gotcha.
True champagne, generally speaking, is going to be brut, dry.
It's very dry.
So when I talk about you don't necessarily need champagne, that's kind of what I'm alluding to. Now, the traditional toast with, a flute of bubbly, absolutely, by all means do that.
Of course.
But there are German-style sparkling wines. There are Spanish styles. There's Italian. There's even some from the United States that are extremely good. And with champagne, generally speaking, you're not going to find a bottle that's under $40 a bottle.
Gotcha.
But you get into some of these just as elegant styles, then you can really start exploring all the different worlds of wine. Germany is a wonderful place to find sparkling wines, and a lot of them, they come across as demi-sec. So it's semi-sweet, semi-dry.
Semi-sweet, yeah.
Right?
Which is probably better for if you have a wedding with 150 people, the chances of everybody there liking super, super dry, true champagne is probably really slim.
I would say it's much lower than folks that appreciate the fruitiness that can come across in the demi-sec style, yeah.
And if you're paying for all of that champagne, all those bottles, even if it's just for a toast, you probably want people to actually enjoy the glass that they have and not just take a sip and be like, this is terrible.
I would hope so.
I would hope so too. But I think a lot of people who don't know a lot about wine think, oh, I'm doing a champagne toast. Let me go get champagne, a bottle that says champagne. They don't know anything else. And then it's expensive and people don't like it. So it's interesting, and it's something good to know of, like, there are other options that you can do for your champagne toast.
Absolutely. German styles are wonderful. If you like it dry, cavas from Spain are absolutely fantastic. But I don't think that most folks realize just how much variety is out there. And, how you can find those light, fine, playful bubbles like you would in a true champagne, and then still have that essence of fruitiness that comes along with that demi-sec style. And it's not it's not a pervasively sweet style wine. It doesn't have to be, but you can still find that balance, and you find something that's a little bit more appealing to everyone en masse, as opposed to just the individual, well, I like super dry wine. I like super dry champagnes to pair with my oysters, things like that. There's just too much more variety out there, and people, I think, haven't had that opportunity to experience that. And then, try all the new things, try all the wonderful things that are out there.
Yeah, I think, which again, I don't know a lot about this, but I think I found that I like Prosecco, which it's like, for me, I used to say like, oh, I can't stand champagne. And then eventually I tried what I thought was champagne, and I was like, oh, I like this one. And it was Prosecco. So it's just interesting. People like different things, and it's good. The more you know.
The one thing that I always try to stress when it comes to sparkling wine, though, is drinking and experiencing sparkling wine is as much of a textural experience as it is about flavors and aromatics. So, like, Charmat method is how Prosecco is made, where you have bubbles that are infused in a very highly pressurized vat. They tend to come across as a little bit bigger, the pearls, the bubbles, and they come across as a little bit more coarse and abrasive. But when you have a méthode de champenois, the traditional sparkling method of champagne, where secondary fermentation is actually done in the bottle, then those bubbles are much finer, they're much lighter, they're playful, they're excitable. And we find a lot of that in German styles as well.
Oh, that's so, I never even thought about, like, I guess it's the amount that it's like.
How does it feel?
How does it feel? This is silly, but have you heard of the term, like, a crispy Coke?
A crispy, no.
No, okay. So, when you take a sip of soda, and, like, sometimes it's like almost that, like, crispy feeling, like it burns.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Right.
This just made me think of that. But, like, I'm sure that you think it's like, oh, this tastes different, but it's really the way that the bubbles are, not just the flavors in it.
We can relate it to sparkling water as well. Think about the difference between, like, a can of bubbly and a bottle of Pellegrino. Bubbly is coarse, it's abrasive, you feel it.
Yeah.
Pellegrino is a little bit finer, has more finesse.
Yeah.
That, to me, is the difference when you're talking about the bubbles in, say, like a Prosecco versus bubbles that are done in champagne or anything in that secondary fermentation style.
I've never thought about that, but it's like, now that you're saying it, I'm like, wow, that makes total sense.
Right?
Total sense. Okay, so if, for the brides and grooms, if their venue does not include wine, or if there are other wedding festivities, if it's at someone's home, how can PRP help them provide wine for their events?
Absolutely. As long as we're able to, provide the wine and they're allowed to have their own outside wine at that venue, we actually have a staff of dedicated wine consultants that work with folks and in-home wine samplings and trying out different styles of wine, exploring their palates, exploring what they and their guests enjoy. So we actually work with you, and rather than just saying, oh, this will be good, no, we want you to try it first. Everything that we do is all about try this before you make any decisions. An educated decision is the best one you're going to make.
Yes.
And we're not ones to just say, take my word for it. No. I want you to trust your palate. I want you to trust your nose. I want you to trust how this wine feels to you. So we work with all of our clients and our prospective clients in that endeavor, and trying new wines, exploring their palate, exploring the world of wine. A lot of folks don't even realize that there are wines that come out of Hungary and Austria. We we have family-owned vineyards there. And there's so many unique styles out there, rather than just getting stuck in the same 6 grapes that everybody knows. Cab, Merlot, Pinot, Chard, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Grigio. That's it. Well, there's Grüne Veltliner, there's Brauers Zweigelt, Regent from Germany. I mean, there's so much out there, and frankly, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So that's what our wine consultants do, is we work with folks to explore that world of wine and try all of these wonderful different varietals. And especially when they're coming from, a relatively smaller producers, you have a little bit more focused cultivation on the methods of the winemaking process. Plus, it can help mitigate some of those high price points too.
Yeah.
So we offer a wide variety of options, very dry to very sweet, red, white, sparkling, fortified, everything in between, at a very reasonable price point.
It's so interesting because, like, in typical wedding planning, there's, for the bride, usually a trial for hair and makeup. And there's usually a cake tasting, and there's a lot of times like a food tasting for catering. And something that I think is so important is like a wine tasting. And it's not, I feel like it's not super common, but it's a great thing for brides and grooms to like know about and maybe start doing, because like we said, your guests, there's probably over 100 people there. Like, you want something that goes well with the food that you're offering. And I know personally, like, I used to say like, oh, I hate wine. And it's like, that's because I only tried what my roommate had in college, and it was the cheapest thing that Target had, so
the jug of Lambrusco that was sitting in the back of the fridge for a year or so.
Exactly. So it's a good thing, and it's great that your company helps people do that, and you'll do those wine samplings so that they can actually have something that they enjoy and something that their guests will enjoy at their wedding.
Absolutely.
So being a bride and groom is crazy these days. And during the engagement season, there's a lot of gifts that go back and forth. It's not just the guests buying gifts for the couples, but these days it's really common for the couples to be buying gifts for their bridesmaids, for their groomsmen, and for their family. And not only the wedding weekend, but typically when you ask someone to be your bridesmaid or groomsman, they have like a bridesmaid proposal box, and there's little gifts in there. And then at the bachelorette weekend, they provide their bridesmaids or groomsmen like with more gifts. And then at the rehearsal dinner, there's more things. And I know at my rehearsal dinner, not only did I give my bridesmaids and our groomsmen some gifts, but I gave my parents a gift as like a thank you for this whole wedding. Thank you for raising me. I gave my in-laws a gift. And then I had just a little something for like my grandparents as well, just to like honor the special people in my life. So I know PRP can help with these things as well. So tell me a little bit more about how you guys can help out with this and what you provide.
One of the largest aspects of our gift service line is what we call our private label option. What we do is we work with our clients to help them develop their own labels for a bottle of wine. So on that label, you can put a couple's photo, you can put a logo, any kind of phrase, any kind of saying. Thank you for joining us on our special day. Absolutely. And we have a gentleman that works with us in our graphics department who helps design those labels. We send out proofs. So you like this, want to tweak that? No worries. And then we set up those whole labels for you. We slap it on a case of wine for you, and then you have your own personalized, unique gift that you can give out. We're very malleable in what we can do with those labels, and as far as how we can set them up, it's a 3 to 4 week turnaround basically between approving the label, getting them on those bottles of wine, and getting them delivered out there to you. So for folks that want to make, and especially with wine as it can be held for years, you want to have like an anniversary style gift. All right, well, here is that bottle of wine that you had 5 years ago with your face on it when you got married. So that's just a fantastic option.
It could be like a nice gift even to yourself of like, it would have been special on like my first anniversary to like open that bottle of wine. And then, wine does last a long time. So on our 5th or our 10th anniversary, like open that. It's funny that we're talking about this because when I got married, I didn't know you back then. And I printed off like a label with like a cute little message, went to Target, bought some bottle of wine that I knew nothing about. And I remember like, it's the week of my wedding. I had better things to be doing, but I was like scraping off the label with Goo Gone, trying to put the new one on, making sure it's straight. And I don't even know what wine I gave my parents. So having someone like you and your company like pick out a nice bottle of wine to gift to my parents and then have you guys properly put the labels and message on the bottle. It's just like such a nice option. And I wish I knew you existed last year.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. It's okay.
I was still on the Gulf Coast at that point. But we also, and even for folks that aren't looking to give out, say, bottles of wine, one of our other big aspects is we do laser etching. Mm-hmm. So we offer wine glasses that we can have laser etched with the date of your wedding, bride and couple, the bride and groom's name, or to my groomsmen or to my bridesmaids, anything along those lines. We also have sommelier kits that work as like a bottle opener, a foil cutter, stoppers, little aerator. You can actually fit a really nice bottle of wine in there as well. We can do the laser etching and engraving on that. Cheese boards, nice slab, like stone slab cheese boards. Mm-hmm. We can laser engrave those. There's a pretty extensive line that we offer, and a lot of the turnaround on that is very quick as well. So, and for folks that have much better things to do than trying to put their own labels on a bottle of wine, that's a service that we offer.
The one that interests, like when I was talking about like bridesmaids, proposal boxes and the bachelorette weekend, something that's really common is getting cups with all the girls' like names or something on it. And a lot of the time people like use stickers and then the stickers come off. And so it would be so nice to have. I like the etching because it looks clean. It looks nice.
It's permanent. It's
permanent. It's not going to come off.
And our glasses are not some cheap, thin glass type of stemware or anything like that. These are quality glasses that we source from Germany, and they're just fantastic.
That's awesome.
I think I have one that I use religiously that sits in my office.
Yeah. A lot of the time, people feel like they need to give so many gifts, and it's like, okay, how many things can I fit in this box? And they get a bunch of cheap stuff. Right. And I think through my experience and like working with couples and whatnot, I've seen that it's probably better to spend a little bit of money on one or two really nice quality gifts that your people will actually enjoy, actually keep, that will hold up, rather than junk. Nobody wants junk.
I couldn't agree more.
So I think for our listeners out there, like, keep that in mind of like, don't feel like you have to provide people with 10 different gifts that are cheap and junky. Like, get them one or two like nice quality, meaningful things that will, last a long time and look really nice. They'll probably appreciate it more.
I remember one of the best gifts that I got as a best man in a wedding for a good buddy over across the state. It was one gift that all of us got. It sounds ridiculous now that I think about it, but it was a .50 caliber bullet with a bottle opener carved into the side of it, and then our names kind of inscribed on the bullet itself. Mm-hmm. Even I'm not really much of a gun guy, but I'll tell you what, that was a cool gift.
That was cool.
It still sits in my office at home, and just because it's a kind of a cool little centerpiece over there, and I'm like, yeah, that happened. That was pretty cool. Yeah. So, when you have, I couldn't agree more. When you have something that is special, something that you actually put some time and thought into, maybe a little bit more money, maybe not necessarily.
Right.
But that time, I think time is our most precious resource. And when we spend a little bit more time thinking about things like that, the appreciation factor, especially now, that wedding was, they've been married for 10 years now. Mm-hmm.
And you still remember it like
it was
immediately.
Yesterday. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of time, like, the time is money. So like the time that it takes to like collect all these random little gifts and try to make them look really nice, it ends up costing you not only your time, but your money, because you end up trying to make things look presentable, where you could just spend, a little bit of time, or some time, but not like chaotic time of trying to figure things out. Like some of your gifts are like really nice, simple. You can pick it. It comes, you know that the quality is going to be really good. When you receive the item, you're not going to have to run around trying to make it look nice. It already looks nice, and it's done for you. When you're in the final stages of planning your wedding, you need simple. Right. You need simple, quality, and things just to be working.
I'll make it easy for you. What do you want it to say? What do you want it on? Does this look good to you? It'll be out in 3 weeks.
That's perfect. That's perfect. That's what I think every couple planning their wedding needs, is perfect. Right. Okay, so this is not really about wine. Maybe your answer will be about wine, but what is one piece of advice that you have for our brides and grooms to be?
Not all wine. Now, here's a common misconception, and yes, I'm going to bring it back to wine.
That's okay. That's okay.
That's my shtick. That's what I do.
That's your world.
One of the most common misconceptions about wine is not all wine gets better with age. It's just not true. Most white wines don't get better with that much age, and the vast majority of red wines don't get that much better with age. They all have a peak. Everything has a peak. All right? The best wines in the world that are set up to cellar and age have to be structured a very specific way. You have to have so much acidity. You have to have so many tannins. You have to have so much alcohol for it to be able to withstand age and time. I don't feel like that's so dissimilar from a lot of relationships. If you want it to withstand time, and you want it to last, and you want it to grow and improve, structure it the right way. You need all of those little things that come together to really create that fine vintage that'll last up and stand through the test of time.
I love that. I really was not expecting you to take that back into relationship advice. I thought it was going to be I was happy with the not all wine gets better with age. I was like, wow, that's interesting. But I could not agree more of the foundation of a relationship is so important. And that's my whole thing is about wedding planning. But part of that is because I want people to have a good wedding day, to focus on the meaning of the day. I want you to be able to look at your fiance or now husband or now wife and just be happy and enjoy and not be freaking out that the flowers aren't the way that you wanted them. And so if you plan well, you can actually enjoy the wedding day. And if you plan well for your marriage is going to be better off. I'm only 1 year into it, but I am really glad that my husband and I have a good foundation. And for us, we went to premarital counseling, and I think that some of those building blocks are so important, and we'll see where we are in 10 years, hopefully still right here. But
I believe in you.
Thank you.
I met your husband too. He's a good guy. I believe in you.
He's a good one. He's a keeper. No, but I really like that advice. And I honestly, just the wine part, I've heard a million times that it gets better with age. So it's interesting to know that
every wine has a peak.
Wine has a peak.
If it's designed, if it's set up a proper way, it can withstand aging and it can hold up. But your run-of-the-mill style wines, most reds will peak out at 10, 12 years, and then they start going downhill.
Interesting.
Very few white wines will hold up to aging, but there are some that do. But again, structure it appropriately so it can withstand that time.
That's very interesting. I really appreciate the lessons that you taught me today, and hopefully our listeners. And I hope that our listeners can reach out to you. Where can they find you online, or what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Our website is prpwine.com. And if you go to South Florida contacts, you can definitely reach my office. But as a branch manager, office line goes straight to me. And anybody with any questions, my phone number is 305-823-7754. Comes to me directly, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
That's awesome. Thank you. And one last, so you're the South Florida branch manager.
Yep.
So obviously South Florida people reach out to Will. If they're not in South Florida, should they still reach out to you, or what should they do?
I'll be more than happy to guide them to the appropriate office.
Okay.
I mean, outside of Florida, we have 16 offices in 9 different states that essentially all operate the same way. But regardless, I'm more than happy to field any of those questions and get them to the appropriate people. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, guys, reach out to Will, pick out the proper wine for your wedding, and let him help you make this as easy as possible so you can focus on the meaning of your big day. So anyway, thank you so much for coming. It was a pleasure to have you.
Likewise. Thank you very much for having me.